All right, Jenna, let's go ahead and get started. If you would like to start with your introduction.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Fariss. I'm Director in Actuary at Milliman and Telescript. And there I help carriers evaluate InsurTech and help implement tools to help with their underwriting workflows or other operational efficiency.
Thank you so much. And as you all can see or did see when you signed up, the topic of today's session is on thinking outside of the actuarial box. So we know that when you say the word actuary, folks tend to think of one or two different options for careers. And we're here to talk today about some other options and some cool things that you can do with your actuarial science exams and credentials. So Jenna, if you would like to start us off with any of that, we do have one question, but as folks are putting those in, go ahead and let's kick off with that topic.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been fun for me to be affiliated with the Society of Actuaries. When I was first taking exams, I only knew the Society of Actuaries as the grader of exams. What I've been surprised, and I became an actuary because I wanted to sit in a cubicle all day and crunch numbers. I thought that sounded like the perfect job. That's what I was told actuaries do. And I said, I want to do that. What I've been surprised by is how many professional opportunities the Society of Actuaries provides. Once you are credentialed, all of the meetings are volunteer led. So I really enjoyed that collaboration after you're done with exams, presenting on topics you're learning about, different expertise. I've met different people in the actuarial community. And it's really a small community. There aren't that many actuaries. So it's fun for me to see how many times I cross paths again and again with different actuaries I know. In fact, the Society of Actuaries did a LinkedIn post about this interview, and different people from my past commented on that. And that was fun to see actuaries that are now retired, but were really critical to giving me the pushes I needed along the way to raise my hand and volunteer and give back to more of the Society of Actuaries. And I'll say, Brianna and I, prepping for this, we're talking about non-traditional paths. I cringe at that word every time. A colleague of mine, Craig Reynolds, is a Milliman colleague and was also a former president of the Society of Actuaries. And I loved what he would say about anything actuaries do is actuarial, because I love that the exams really do teach you a way of thinking and really understanding the business. So that would be my advice to you, is whatever you're doing, being curious and understanding the why that goes along with whatever problem you're trying to solve will help you come up with more creative solutions. And so I started taking exams in the 90s. And in that time, people were really concerned about what was labeled Y2K. How are computers going to cross over to having 2000s was like a big problem. And so I just started, even after graduating from college, taking more Microsoft classes and getting really into IT. So my career has always been a bit of a hybrid, not in traditional actuarial departments, but in IT roles. And I love that combination of knowing the how and why with computers and how that relates and how we can handle big data. I was told often I needed to pick one lane and stick to it, but it hasn't been a problem yet. I'm still blending the two and working in both fields.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And I was about to ask about the, anything that you do as an actuary is actuarial. So thank you so much for reading my own mind as I'm trying to get some of these questions sorted. So we have lots of questions already. Thank you, everyone. As I've been saying, and you've heard many times now, go ahead and put any questions that you have in the Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to start answering some of those now. So Jenna, what sort of questions sorry, the question was, what sort of questions are we able to ask? The answer to that question is you can ask any question that you want. So now here's the rest of the question. Sorry. I'm planning to take the FM exam in a couple of weeks, and while I don't have a problem solving the questions, I'm having trouble using the calculator. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, these are great questions. And so on the type of questions, I agree. Anything you want to ask is what we're here for. I have been in the industry over 20 years, so some of my feedback on particular exams might be dated, but you have a lot more resources today than I did. And we got a few questions ahead of time, one of which was what type of jobs are out there. And I would mention maybe if you were at a home office or a consulting firm that has a lot of students, that can be a great resource. You know, a lot of people out of college that are taking exams together. Where I worked was a smaller firm, which was nice. I feel like I got experience at a younger age, but maybe didn't have that community of people taking exams. I could just say to someone in the cubicle next to me, tell me about your computer. There are good forums though. Beanactuary.org is also a great resource. And a lot of them have message boards. So you can ask other people what they are finding helpful.
Thank you very much. So on the topic of non-traditional roles, what are some options that we may not know about for those of us who've only passed 1 or 2 exams? And then on top of that, what is the best path forward? Which is a bit of a loaded question, I think, but what is your take on it?
Yeah, we could get right into it. A hot topic I hear a lot about is AI. You know, how I'll back up. When I was in high school, a math teacher told me that he thought actuary was a poor choice because they would all be replaced by computers before I graduated college. So that was a long time ago. Clearly, that didn't come true. I have seen our work change, and it's much more collaborative than that. Like I said, you know, working alone in a cubicle. Now you're being creative with more teams and using new tools, but there's still a lot of judgment involved with how to implement those tools, how reliable are they, how can you check your work, what are some ways to do credibility checks and verify information that's being provided. So I am very excited about the profession and the directions it's going. I see nothing but opportunities. Paul asked ahead of time, you know, what concern do you have? For me, it's more keeping up with the demand. I see more and more places that actuaries can work. And do we have enough students getting through the exams to meet those needs? Not are they being replaced? Did I answer all your questions? I thought I had another thought. Oh, possible career paths. You know, I've had friends who left their insurance company job to play poker full time or work for Major League Baseball. You know, there's big data in everything we do today. And so that ability to analyze numbers and statistics and probability, there's endless jobs. There's a lot of overlap with data science. I find there are a lot, and I have young kids. I think about what's my advice for them. We don't even know the jobs that are going to be available by the time my kids graduate. So how can they even say, what do I want to be when I grow up? So I think be a lifetime learner, learn everything you can learn, and you'll find new and creative ways to use it as you go. I think the opportunities are there. And when you're first graduating from college, I know it can feel hard to get your foot in the door. Part of that is companies really invest so much in their actuarial students. I know we spend a lot on giving students study time, resources, and teaching them. They come out of college not knowing some of the skills we need them to know. So we're investing a lot in training them, but then know that, you know, it pays off big dividends in the long run.
Thank you so much. I tried to unmute myself, but it didn't work. Jenna, do you recommend any good books for an overview of the actuarial profession and possible career paths?
Oh, that's a good question. Not actuarial specific. I love business books in general. one I just read was the 5 dysfunctions of team, the power of why. I really do think that ability to ask informed questions will help whoever you're asking understand the topic more. And the better you understand the topic, the better solutions you can come up with. And I really do think companies are going to teach you a lot of what they want you to know. So I would really trust and invest in what companies are, once you have a job, are asking you to learn about, because each actuarial job is so unique that I think that's why these interviews are so interesting, right? None of our day-to-day look exactly the same. So I think the more you understand that day-to-day, the more you can apply it to other day-to-days.
Thank you. And somewhat in a similar vein, do you think it's easier to teach an IT person actuarial science business or to teach an actuary the IT discipline?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm sure it's political either way you answer. I think the actuarial training really teaches you how to think about complex topics. That's what I love. So I think it's easier to teach actuaries anything because they've had to think about things in so many unique ways. I think someone who's not familiar with actuarial science, that can be a bit more of an overwhelming topic. To me, IT feels intuitive, maybe is the wrong word, but very logical as you understand the steps.
Thank you. All right. I'm a physicist PhD in my early 30s, but I've grown disillusioned with my stodgy career at a national lab. I'd like to pivot into something in industry, but I can't decide between switching to becoming an actuary and a data scientist. Could you comment on the similarities and differences between the two careers and what a typical day generally entails for them both?
Being an actuary has been a wonderful career for me. I do love it. I think the exams teach you so much that's applicable to so many jobs. So that would be my vote. I've also had several PhD friends that, we didn't talk about age, but that in their 40s and 50s decided to become actuaries. So that's not unusual at all. Your PhD work, I'm sure, prepares you to get through the exams faster than a lot of people do. So your experience won't be lost. I think you should be, and you did say in your early 30s. So there's still tons of time. I think you need to, I would say, go into the job being humble. You might need to expect an entry-level job, even though you have a good bit of experience already. I wouldn't be dissuaded by that because the entry-level actuarial exams are quite good already, but you'll move up more quickly as well. So I would go to an interviewer who might feel like you were overqualified, saying you want to take an entry-level position because you're prepared to learn and grow in that position.
Thank you. I am a math education major considering switching to a math BS concentration in actuarial science. What does your daily workload look like? Is it stressful? And do you have to be a specific type of person?
These are great questions. I don't know if people are familiar with DISC training. There are lots of these that talk about different tendencies we have, modes of communication. I do think communication is so important, right? As actuaries, we're all have the math skills, but if you're a 10 out of 10 with your technical skills and a 3 out of 10 with your communication skills, you might be remembered as a 3 out of 10 overall. Somehow that average doesn't work out. So I will say that helps. The more you invest in your written word and ability to share ideas, I think will pay off big time. But as far as stressful, I've had different jobs, and for me, it's exciting. It feels, I think stressful is the wrong word, but maybe important because I'm making decisions that impact, millions or billions of dollars. And so that's fun for me. Like, gosh, this is such a important work, and the mess ups would be really material. But I love that there's so many ways to check your answer. That gives me a lot of confidence. I can remember as a kid, I didn't like public speaking, and math is really what helped me get in front of the classroom because I knew I could check my work and I was sure I was right. So that took away at least one of the embarrassing outcomes I was worried about. So I do love that. your question about stressful, and it wasn't exactly life or death. I do think going through the actuarial exams is similar to the commitment of med school or PhD programs or other after graduate type work. And I could sleep at night, right? There could be large material financial problems, but you just have so many resources too. The Society of Actuaries publishes what they call their ASOPs, which are actuarial standards of practices. So it was really nice for me to be able to say, hey, I'm going by this standard that we've agreed to as a profession. I didn't do anything wrong here, or I know that I'm upholding this level of quality that's expected. And so that gave me a lot of confidence and remove some of the stress I would have if I didn't have the support of such a well-respected profession. Oh, and the DISC part was, so no, you don't have to be a specific type of person. There are different types of communicators. I won't be able to name them all. I fall into the direct category, but there's some that are more collaborative and supportive, and I lost the I, inclusive maybe. Do you remember, Brianna? And so, but there's not one type to be an actuary. Any of those skills, I think actuaries are the best rounded profession. You have to, have all these skills to make it work. So anyone can do it. You're all smart enough. I feel like the exams are a matter of putting in the time and investment to pass the exams, because we all know the bar for passing is very high.
Thank you, Jenna. And I can't remember what everything stands for. I'm also direct, so I can't remember the rest. But I did drop a link to like a free, I think like a 10 to 20 minute DISC personality test. If y'all are interested, there's a free resource for you to use.
Real-time fact checking. I love it.
Yes, I'm trying my best. I'm trying to do 3 things. I love it. Okay, next question. In order to become an actuary, how would you suggest us to do in networking? Is it better for us to go to any bank-related companies networking? Are there more industry suggested to participate in? And if there are, what are they?
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend bank. I think banks have a smaller number of actuaries. There are actuaries at bank, but the most will be at insurance companies. So I think those would be your best bet. I had an email from Eliza from Pakistan, and she was saying there were only a few number of actuaries in her country. And so I was interested. So this morning I did just search it at SOA.org. There's an actuarial directory. So you can search your area. So there were actually 15 credentialed actuaries in Pakistan. And I know I grew up in a small town called Fancy Gap, Virginia. So there certainly weren't actuaries in my area. But as a high school student, when I knew it was a career I was interested in, I looked in my area and who could I reach out to and just sit down with and ask a few questions. And they'll have other ideas for networking and how to get involved. I'm presenting at a conference in Savannah, Georgia next month for the Southeastern Actuarial Club. So there's a lot of regional actuarial clubs that you can go to as a student, and they're very inexpensive. I think that one's registration's around $50 or so. So those seem like inexpensive ways to get involved and learn more about the profession.
Thank you, Jenna. And I just dropped a link for the actuarial directory, but also the SOA's future actuaries, so our candidate facing events. If anyone is in the Midwest, on Monday, the 23rd, so very soon in Indianapolis, we're hosting a Candidate Connect event. We host several of those a year, mostly in the United States, not mostly, pretty much only in the United States and Canada, but we do have an international team. So if that's something you would like to see, shoot us a message and we can get that over to our international team if you want to see something abroad, and we can let them know that there's interest in that. Okay, before this next question, I am so excited about all of these career changers in here right now who are looking to switch to become actuaries. This has been a super hot topic my team has been talking about, so I'm loving it. Please, if you're a career changer, tell us what you're changing from, because this is great. So I'm a video editor who's currently trying to switch careers and is currently studying for Exam P. Is it vital to work in an insurance job along with taking the exams before trying to apply to actuarial jobs? Love to hear your input. And for context, their current job has given them a lot of flexibility to study, which they wanted to take full advantage of in the meantime.
Yeah, if you ask multiple actuaries, you'd probably get multiple answers. If you ask multiple actuaries, you'd probably get multiple answers. I feel like they're kind of two entryways for career switchers. The exams certainly hold up. So you could start with taking the exams. You could also start with trying to get a foot in the door at an actuarial profession, but not in the actuarial department. So I know at Milliman, we have a lot of jobs and entry-level jobs that don't require actuarial exams. It's very competitive. Those places are competitive employers, but you could, if you have other experience that might be relatable, I would prioritize firms like that have actuaries, even if it's working as a video editor at one of those firms. Maybe it's using the experience you have to get a foot in the door. And what I mean by the actuarial department is usually I think we require 2 exams before you can enter the program, and then you get more exam and material support. The exams cost money, the study materials cost money, and we also give hours to study for those exams. So the short answer would be you can do it either way. I don't recommend one over the other. I will say some people now come out of college with 2 exams, so I don't think it would be unusual for you to have 2 exams and no other experience. I think that would be pretty typical for an entry-level position. And maybe before we go to the next one, Brianna, I could answer a couple more Paul's questions too. He had emailed us ahead of time and was asking about, is there a major you recommend, or which?
Jenna, I can't hear you anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For me, it was encouraging that I could go, that we had these exams that were kind of standardized. I could go to any college, right? I didn't have to go to the most expensive university to get my foot in the door as an actuary. So I went to a state program, and it didn't even have an actuarial science degree at that time. I am quite proud. I've helped do some of their senior seminars now, and now they have a major. And in fact, a nephew of mine graduated with 4 exams, which is kind of unheard of. 2 is pretty typical. So I tell you all that to say, I don't think it matters where you go to school. Lots of degrees can prepare you for the actuarial exams. I studied statistics and computer science. There's a lot of people, actuaries, who studied pure math, economics, any of those business math type related fields. I don't think there is one major other than actuarial science that prepares you for all the exams. So a lot you'll have to learn postgraduate anyway. So it doesn't necessarily matter what you study undergrad, because you'll still have to learn as you go with the exams.
Thank you. All right. Along the same lines, do you have any advice for those trying to break into the actuary field after having a few years of work experience, not actuary or insurance related?
Yeah, we talked a lot about Milliman as a consulting firm. I would also look for home office insurance companies near you. I know Lincoln Financial does a lot of work with my alma mater, Appalachian State, and tries to hire a lot of their graduates into their programs. So I would look at insurance companies, but I do mean their home office, so like their headquarters, not your local insurance agent. They wouldn't have actuaries, but if you're seeing a building that has a couple hundred employees, it's an insurance company, they'll have actuaries.
Thank you.
And maybe being prepared to do an unpaid internship. The internships are very competitive.
Right. I've only recently started exploring the actuarial career, just studying for their first exam. Good luck, by the way. And are there any important skills that aspiring actuaries should focus on or not forget about while studying for exams that would help prepare them for the first job? I love this question, by the way.
The skill you need is thick skin, right? It's most everyone fails exams. It's hard. You put in so much time and then you didn't pass. So being prepared to know that doesn't mean this is the wrong career for you. It just means you need to put in more time. So my advice to people is take an exam early so you know what they're like. Everyone you're competing with, got A's in their calculus classes. So I think it's a big shock to a lot of people when they're used to making A's to go to failing when they thought, they were the best at this concept. So it is very competitive, and they're hard questions and they're timed. I thought I could think through them and didn't really always practice being fast enough at them. So memorizing what I could memorize so that I could have that really quick recall to spend more time on the harder questions I needed to think through, but some were a bit more automatic answers for me.
Thank you. Is there any advice you would give to someone who is changing careers to become an actuary?
I think we covered that one well, but I will add to it, to keep learning, fail fast. I like a lot of agile research. My organization is what we call SAFE, Scaled Agile Framework. And in that, you think about iterating, take a minimum viable product, which might be just taking the exam. Then you fail it. Then what can I do better next time? What was the weakest area? The Society of Actuaries, a lot of the exams have some detailed feedback for areas to focus on next time. So keep iterating and hang in there, have thick skin, stay with it. It can be a long journey, but it's worth it. I would say both. Both those things are true. The exams took longer than I expected, but the career has been more rewarding than I expected. And I had more employability than I expected, right? The job security is great. There are actuary postings all the time. Like I said, my one concern for the industry would be keeping up with the demand.
Thank you. Love this question as well. What are actuaries doing in the field to take into account and be part of solutions for climate issues facing the planet today? And what ways are there to become involved in these projects?
Yeah, they're complex problems, right? If they were easy, we would have solved them already. So I think the more you can learn, I see more of those opportunities now in my 40s, later in my career than I did earlier on, right? When you're still taking exams, probably is harder to get involved, but you can look to volunteer, but they really need people working on these issues with a lot of experience. So I think keep that in mind, keep your passion alive as you're getting the experience under your belt, and then there will be ample opportunities. So I know Milliman does a lot of research in this area, is part of a lot of think tanks that are participating in these, but they're very selective to be a part of because it's intense work.
Sorry, I got lost in all my screens. I'm trying to drop, we have some sections at the SOA that are focused on these sorts of things. The emerging topics section is the one that comes to mind immediately. If you're interested, they've put out some publications, and you can also, depending on where you are in your journey, you can join sessions or attend webinars and such. Okay. Next question. I have been out of college for over 2 years. I was unable to get an internship or related job at that time. Now I'm in a weird middle ground where I don't have the experience to be hired as an entry-level actuary, but I'm not a student. How do I not get discouraged with job rejections and exam fails?
Yeah, and even learning the terminology is hard. So when I say student, I actually do mean you. A student is anyone who doesn't have at least their ASA yet. So you're a student for 7 or 10 years after college, right? Anyone taking exams is a student. We don't mean a college student. We mean a student on the actuarial journey. So I would be prepared to position yourself to an employer as a student. That's how they're going to refer to you and expect you to be in that categorization. But the other advice all still applies, right? Keep learning what you can learn. Keep trying to get a foot in the door. Keep working in proximity of actuaries. So try and find departments that you can get in that are near the actuarial work. And if you show an interest, the actuaries that are there are going to love having the additional help. And raise your hand and volunteer once you get there. How can I help? How can I learn more? How can I shadow you for a day?
Thank you. Can you please speak to how you feel about the work-life balance in your career?
Yeah, that's always evolving. I think that's up to the individual. I see some people who do it really well and some people, who have less of a balance than I would want to have. I think you can find a place for any of those varieties. I have young kids. I still travel a lot for work. I booked a later flight tonight because I wanted to have time for this interview, but I'm flying out after this. I think you have to think about what the trade-offs are for you. I travel a lot, so I'm not home for every bedtime, but I have the flexibility to prioritize other things. I've known for a year that my kids were going to be out of school on Halloween, so I've taken that day off work, right? I plan around the things I know about so I can try and have that time with them, even though I do work a lot.
Thank you. If you're more interested in portfolio management, do you recommend a master's in financial engineering or an internship at a bank?
Education's never going to be a bad investment. So the more you learn, the better. I don't think it's required. You could also spend that time, working on the exams and trying to study for the exams specifically. The actuarial exams really do a great job preparing you for any of the focused disciplines like portfolio management that you'd want to get into.
Thank you. All right, we have another career changer. I love it. Transitioning from a high school math teacher of 19 years, they've passed their first exam and are looking for their way into an entry-level position. Do they need to be willing to relocate to have a good chance to get their first actuarial job?
I love that question, just because my answer has changed. I mentioned that I grew up in a small town and I absolutely had to be willing to relocate. And I've done that. My kids said to me, can we finally go to the same school 2 years in a row? Because I've had to relocate. That answer's really changed with COVID. A lot of companies are not going back to in person. So there's way more remote opportunities than there were before. I would say you do need to be willing to travel somewhat. Even if you do want to be remote and not in the home office, I think any company is going to expect you to have some in-person time. So my company does that. We're actually fully remote at our practice, but we have different mandatory team meetings that are in person.
You just mentioned that technical skills are important in this industry. In my current courses, okay, I think, Arvin, when you were typing, you maybe didn't finish that sentence. So I'm just going to go to the question. How do you sort of train your communication skills?
Yeah, thanks. I see that too, Brianna. This is an interesting one. So it may have changed. Man, I'm getting older. But for me, I feel like the exams teach you concepts. Any technical skills you need, you're going to learn on the job. So I certainly got way faster at Excel, and that time it was C#, programming languages and what I was doing on the job. I didn't learn that in coursework or exams, right? That's more hands-on training. So I think most companies would expect to teach you that sort of thing, now there, because it just changes so much, now like knowing Power BI and data visualization tools is important, but I know we expect to teach anyone really at any level that type of knowledge. It's rare that we would expect them to come in with that knowledge. And then we talked about the communication skills. They only help highlight your technical skills.
I saw belatedly that the rest of the sentence is in there with this next question now. So thinking specifically, how do you train your communication skills while your major is not focusing on the soft skills it's focusing on the technical skills instead?
It's hard to do everything at once, right? And maybe that's it. Maybe I would focus on the exams first, because the exams are such a weeder to get your foot in the door. It's a hoop to jump through, but it's effective. And so I would focus on the exams over all else. Then as you have capacity throughout your career, though, I think it's taken me farther in my career after I was done with exams to focus on the communication skills more.
I will also share, I know I've dropped the link like 10 times in the chat, but our free affiliate membership through the Society of Actuaries, we have a lot of e-learning modules on like resume writing and interviewing skills. And I don't know if we have one specifically on presenting, but we do have some of those soft skill e-learning modules, and they're completely free if you sign up. I'll drop the link one more time so folks can see it. Right. And then our next question, the exams that I've taken and failed haven't given much feedback. Is there somewhere else I can go for that besides the original results email, or how do I know what to focus on when I try again?
I might combine this with the next email too. It says, I've heard there are significant changes over the last few years, the exams, processes, and general path becoming an actuary. Could you explain what these changes are? or were. No, would be the short answer. There have been so many changes. When I started taking exams in the 90s, they just sort of been reworked. And so a lot of the content is very similar, but the naming and numbering of the exams has been different. We've tried historically to have more smaller exams. We've tried having fewer but larger exams. So when I was taking exams, they might only be offered once a year. And so you had to sort of stagger. You didn't really take them sequentially. There wasn't necessarily an order. So even if you aren't getting feedback on that specific exam, it was also helpful for me at that time. Past exams were published, so I could think through what on that exam did I know and not know, and maybe if that exam I just took was published, I could remember what I answered and what I didn't know and what I had to look up. And you spend so much time with the material. I usually knew from an exam what I was prepared for and what I wasn't. Sometimes after the exam more than going into it, but it was helpful to focus. And so I love that Brianna posted more links to that redesign information in the chat.
And I was also trying to find, I know there are town halls being hosted for the FSA redesign, but I couldn't find that link in my frantic Googling. But those links should be on the FSA2025.soa.org page. Any information about upcoming webinars or town halls should be listed on that page. Okay, we don't have any other open questions. If anyone does have one more question, feel free to put it in. I'm going to go back and look at Paul's email that we were sent a list of questions ahead of this. So I'm going to see if any of these haven't been covered yet.
Sure, I can help you with that too.
Sure.
What I'm looking at here, can you suggest anything that I should be doing or working on that will make me a more competitive candidate? So hopefully we've answered that. Oh, I like the one in the chat too. We'll get to that one too. A more competitive candidate. I think it's mainly exams. Internships get prioritized too. I interned for 5 years. I actually started when I was in high school and then all through college before I graduated college. It was easier to get jobs at that time. It wasn't as competitive. I didn't have any exams after college, but had 5 years of internships, and I had multiple job offers. I know Neil, though it's rare for us to hire anyone who didn't have an internship. And usually to get the internship, you need an exam or two. So most hires are coming out of school with 2 exams and internships. And so I'd really focus my time there more than anything. I've had people say, well, maybe I should get a part-time job and show that I'm hardworking. I do think showing that you can get through the exams is what employers want to see about the hardworking.
And thank you for all the questions that are coming in. We love them. Okay, so do you have any tips for choosing between the SOA or CAS exams?
Yeah, the good thing is it sounds like most people in this meeting don't have many exams yet. The good news is you don't have to choose yet. The first several exams, I think it's 4, the first 4 exams, 2 now. Okay, first 2 exams are jointly sponsored by the SOA and Casualty Society. So you definitely don't need to choose before that. The Society of Actuaries has worked hard to have their credentials recognized in all lines of business. So I would say property and casualty also recognizes the Society of Actuaries credentials, whereas life and health are specifically looking for SOA and not CAS. Would you say that right, Brianna? Would you add to that?
So what I would add is, first of all actuaries are good actuaries. So whoever, even if you choose to go to CAS, we work together with them a lot. So Jenna mentioned Be an Actuary earlier. That is a pipeline initiative between both the Society of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuarial Society. And we're really focused on high school events. So we are working together. We are friends. Really, you have to think of, are you more interested in working on long-term types of things? I don't know why I can't blank out. So like retirement, pension, any of those sorts of things, that is more supported by the Society of Actuaries track. Whereas, like Jenna said, the property and casualty over at CAS. So if you're thinking like, I'm really interested in helping people, with their premiums after a flood or after a natural disaster, those short term, not like long long planning sort of things. Those are typically the folks who go the CAS route. So it's really, there's no bad answer. It's just the kind of math that you enjoy doing and where you want to work.
I'll add to that a little more. This feels like a bigger issue in your mind than it would be for an employer. There's a lot of overlap and people cross over all the time. So I can remember it feeling like such a burden to have to decide. I mentioned I'd had 5 years of an internship. It was on the life and health side. So I actually worried that I wouldn't be able to get a job because I didn't have any property and casualty experience. And so what would I do? You know, had I just shot myself in the foot by investing so many years? Like, I was very stressed about this, which just seems ridiculous to me in retrospect. So I wrote an honors thesis on homeowners insurance, actually in North Carolina. I live near the beach. And so how is it the rates are subsidized by the pooling, right? Because there's more natural disasters at the beach, the hurricane insurance and things like that. But I spent so many hours trying to prove that I had property and casualty experience because I was so afraid a property and casualty insurer wouldn't look at me because my internship was on the life and health side. I really don't think that's the way it works in an employer's mind.
Thank you. Follow up. I'm not sure which one you're following up for. I think the question about getting feedback on exams. But so what if someone is trying to take the exam again in 2 months and the results won't be posted by then?
Good luck. I don't have a good answer. Study hard. Wait, I don't know. Can you add to that?
I cannot add to that. I would say the same thing. I am also, so my work is specifically with students, so folks who maybe not have even started taking exams yet. So I'm not super familiar with the exam pathway, but if you want to send an email to me with more specific questions, I can try to get you the resources that we have. And I'll put my email address in the chat so folks have it and they can email me.
I will just say, as a theme, I feel like I can pick up on some stress in these questions, right? And people feel the pressure for this rush. I have to achieve it all now. If I could talk to my 20-year-old self, I wish I told myself to take a beat, take a breath, slow down. There's plenty of time. This is a long life. While it might feel urgent now, it's okay to have it take a little longer. You're not going to be penalized for taking a year longer to get through exams or whatever it may be.
Yes, I would completely echo that. Like Jenna said, her nephew graduated college with 4 exams, which is almost unheard of, honestly. So wherever you think you are in the right place where you're supposed to be. I had one of my best friends as an actuary, and she graduated college with no exams passed, and she didn't take her first exam until she finished college. So it's really up to what you're comfortable with and what you can add on to your shoulders, because obviously studying for an exam, it's stressful and it's also going to take a lot of time. So you need to think about, when is it right for me? So if that means you go a year in between exams, that means you go a year in between exams. And we're not going to say, we're going to get rid of these person's passes and they're going to have to start over. We would never do that. So really make sure that you're going at a pace that's comfortable for you, and please prioritize your mental health. If I can say anything, take anything away from this, please prioritize your mental health. And speaking sort of that, can you comment on the compensation at an entry-level actuary can expect to receive?
Can't really. I'm so removed from that. I'm not close to it. When I was going through, DW Simpson was a great resource. They published actuarial surveys for compensation. And so that had nice brackets of so many years experience, so many exams. It was kind of a grid that you could see it grow. I will say an entry-level actuary is getting so much more than their salary, though. So I think the salaries are actually quite good, but if for some reason that seemed too low for you, the number doesn't tell the whole story. You know, you're getting so much experience, you're getting on the job training. I thought about it how I rationalized it when after I graduated college, is it was like going to graduate school, but not having to pay for it and getting paid to do it, because the exams are very expensive. And if you're in an actuarial role, your exams are going to be paid for, your study materials are going to be paid for, and you're going to be given extra time to study, which is a big advantage. You're not having to give up as much of your nights and weekends. Still give up some.
Thank you. Yes. And I posted the link to the most recent DW Simpson salary surveys. What we at the SOA say for college students graduating with 2 past exams, they're typically looking at $55,000 to $70,000 a year in their first role. And of course, that varies if you look at the salary survey, you'll see that varies depending on geographic location, the exact type of work you're doing, if you're at a large firm or a small firm. So there are a lot of things that factor into that salary. But the DW Simpson should give you a lot of really great, a starting point of where to look. Okay. Do you have any advice on choosing which SOA educational pathway to choose?
I don't. When I was going through, they were general degrees, so I didn't have to specify. I do a lot of work in both the life and health discipline, so looking at which one I would have chosen even for my role today isn't clear. So I think it's back to some of the SOA CAS questions too. It doesn't matter as much as it feels like it does. There'll be job opportunities no matter what you decide, and you're never stuck. You can work in a discipline. You can get that expertise in other ways than the credentialing process.
Would you suggest us to buy a textbook and stuff in terms of preparing for tests?
Oh my gosh, everyone learns so differently. And I love that we're learning more about neurodivergent brains, right? Each of our brains are so differently. Where I interned, I had 20 years on the next actuary, and one guy told me, I just read the textbooks and then made 10s on all the exams. And so I tried that, and I made a 0 the first time I took the exam. Maybe it was a 1 was the bottom of the scale, whatever the lowest number was. But reading the textbook was never enough for me. Maybe you retain what you read better than I do. I needed study materials, and I needed in-person study materials. There were a lot of really good in-person seminars at that time. A lot of the universities with actuarial departments put on seminars. They're usually like a week intensive. And then as I was going through it, more companies, the Infinite Actuaries one, I know, I'm sure there are more now, that have videos that were really nice. So you could watch a video and learn as you go, and go off and do some problems and then watch a video again. And so that was really helpful for me. And a couple of career changers I know started those programs. I know one woman who was, a PhD, a chair of a math department, then became an actuary, passed the exam so quickly. She thought, I need to help teach people how to pass the exam. So asking questions, knowing someone who's studying for the same exam or working on the same exam, or if you have a homework set, I'm stuck on number 10 without, it's even like helping my kids for their homework. I have to go back and sort of orient myself to what we're even talking about. Then if you have someone who's right there deep in the material with you, is invaluable for me. I know the sticker shock can be a lot, that, gosh, this is money to spend when I'm trying to get a job. Maybe I don't have the time to spend on resources. It's a great investment.
Thank you. All right. So someone passed FMNP. Congratulations. That's amazing. Do they have to pick now? Yes. I don't want to tell anybody about the next test I'm taking because I don't want to limit my job options. Lots of positions require that you are working towards your ACAS or your ASA. What are their next steps?
I would be interesting. The job postings that I've seen say that you're working toward one of those, not specifying one. They want you to be working towards you're an associate, but it doesn't matter which one. So I don't think picking one limits you.
And you've talked a lot about that too, since that question was asked. So hopefully that answered. That's helpful. All right. Last question. As a career changer, they're a math PhD and was a professor for the last couple of years post-grad. What are some career avenues for actuaries that an outsider might not be aware of?
You know, honestly, so I mentioned I went to Appalachian State and they didn't have an actuarial science major when I graduated. I actually just posted on LinkedIn that they're hiring, they're expanding that. So they're looking for someone who's already a credentialed ASA and a PhD. But you could think about teaching math somewhere that also has an actuarial science department. And so that you could be, doing what you're credentialed to do already while you're still learning, and that might help you on your path. So I think there are a lot of teaching opportunities that an outsider might not think of initially. I mentioned the study support resources. All of those are private companies that you could reach out to, and I'm sure they would love someone with your teaching experience, and maybe that could help with the earlier exams that you have already passed or will pass. You could help teach as you're trying to learn yourself. But I mentioned some of the other non-traditional paths, data analysis, data analytics, sports, gambling, poker. There's all types of actuaries working for banks and not just insurance companies.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So we like to say anywhere that risk exists, there's an actuary somewhere. So we have a member who is an actuary at Disney. So we tap on her a lot to come speak to a lot of our students, because you think, I want to work for Disney, I love Disneyland, whatever, yada, yada. Well, you can work for Disney by doing math. We have members who are actuaries for Uber and for other like tech startups or big tech companies, because again, there's going to be risk involved. And so they're going to need an actuary for that.
And a little more about what I do, I would say historically, actuaries have been involved in, call it pricing or reserving or certain disciplines. I don't feel like actuaries were always so involved in underwriting, which is medical conditions, assessing it for risk. That's really changed over the last few years as we get more digital and just more data. It's too much data to process. And so how do we weed through that statistically, not just from the medical perspective? And so I feel like that's been a newer area of innovation that's been rewarding for me the past 10 years, call it, maybe 5.
Awesome. Well, Jenna, we are out of questions. Thank you everyone so much for attending. And for those of you who stuck around, I know this was advertised as being 30 minutes long. Starting in 2024, they will be a full hour long. So no worries coming up. Again, Jenna, thank you so much. I think that this was a fantastic session. Some of these questions I've not seen, and this is the 10th one of these that I've done. So thank you everyone so much. This webinar is going to be available on our affiliate member playlist. So if you want to come back and listen to any of the great answers, that should be up in the next few days, depending on how long Zoom takes to download the recording. Thank you everyone so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.